Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Trying to pay with fake cash and then tell me to do my job? You got it. This happened about 7 years ago. I, 29-year-old male, used to work in a store whose name sounds a lot like those cops that ride in planes. This particular day I was in the register when a well-dressed guy and 3 women walked in, each taking a cart, started walking around and picking things out. I was known for my no BS attitude on the register. You throw money at me, give me attitude, whatever, I'll do it right back to you. So when a coordinator comes to me 30 minutes later and asks me to take the dude and his girls on my register, I already know we're in for a fun time. They rolled up with these 3 carts full of clothes and not just any stuff. We talking shoes and boots that cost $300 to $800, expensive handbags, coats and more. I am just there thinking, ah heck. So they all walk up. I start scanning all the while these ladies are being unpleasant. Finally, I get through it all and total comes up to about $3K. Dude reaches into his fly coat and pulls out a wad of cash. All crisp $100 bills, and immediately I knew something was off. So I take the money and go to the machine to check it. First bill doesn't pass. Neither does the second, so I turn back around and tell the dude that I cannot take the money. Before I even get a chance to fully explain, one of the chicks cuts me off and tells me to take the freaking money and do your freaking job. Cue malicious compliance. I say, you know what? You got it. Let me get the manager so he can help. See, at our discretion we can decline a form of payment. Say if 2 of your cards get declined, gotta use cash. Your cash doesn't pass, gotta use a card, or we can just tell you to get lost. But if we suspect you're using fake money, we gotta try and keep you there while we get the cops. So I got to my manager cash in hand and told him what's up. He went to the office and checked the money. Now the dude is nervous, but just imagine his pants when 2 cops walk in and hit straight for us. His horrified face made my day. Cops take my statement, and next thing you know, all 4 of them are getting arrested. While one of the ladies is screaming and cursing at me. While I tell her in the most innocent voice I can pull off, you told me to do my job. Next story. There goes the neighborhood. When I was young, high school age, I lived with my family in a middle upper class suburb. Everybody in the community got along. And for the most part, life there was quite peaceful and enjoyable. That is, of course, for one major exception, the house next to mine, which was rented by Mr. Public Nuisance. Be it drug/alcohol-fueled parties, drug busts, and constant eviction notices, there was rarely more than a week that went by without some sort of police involvement. To put that guy into perspective, he would have failed to get a job being a dirtbag, simply because he was overqualified. One fateful night, however, the neighborhood got even. It was about 11 p.m. on a spring night. Myself and family are attempting to sleep, however the party pumping from the other side of the fence is making sleep or even clear thought all but impossible. Police had already been called, volumes had been turned down, and then turned back up again as soon as a police car had pulled around the corner. I crawled out of bed and made my way out to the living room. The front door was open and my father was standing out front in conference with the neighborhood pajama committee. They dispersed and my father came back inside. I asked him what was happening and he told me, just be quiet and follow me. I followed my father out of the house into the backyard, where he opened up the valves for our hoses. They bulged under the pressure. He handed me one of the nozzles and whispered, "On my command." We both walked over to the fence and took aim. My father waited, checking his watch until finally his arm dropped. Streams of water appeared from all around and jettisoned into the jerk's yard. Sounds of drunken partying turned to screams of shock. Now would be probably a good time to note that the neighborhood water supply was winter runoff, which usually sat just above freezing temperature. In the cool spring air, it was probably quite uncomfortable. Screams of shock were eventually overpowered by a yell of rage. The jerk had lost it and was screaming half-slurred expletives. We shut the water off, and somebody yelled back, "Sorry, thought it was a dog." A few minutes later, the neighborhood pajama committee had recommuned, and they were giggling among each other. The jerk was standing in front of his house, continuing to yell at the top of his lungs. At that moment, a police car pulled around the corner, and long story short, that jerk was taken to jail on charges of providing alcohol to minors, indecent exposure, loads acts with a girl under the age of 18, and a slew of other alcohol/drug charges. What a night. Never underestimate the pajama committee. Next story. Hit my car and try to get away? I'll track you down and make you pay double. This happened a few years ago. So my fiancée at the time, now wife, was driving around looking for dresses for her bridesmaid to wear for the wedding. We had been going from place to place looking for something she liked, but no luck. We had just finished leaving David's bridal and were leaving the plaza. It had been raining a lot, so the roads were slick. As I reached the intersection of where the plaza met the road to turn out, another car came turning in. Unfortunately, he didn't brake soon enough and skidded into the front end of the driver's side. Thankfully, everyone was okay. We got out of our cars and looked at the damage. His car, of course, was completely unharmed, and mine had a minor dent. He looked about 45-ish and had his son in the car with him. We exchanged names and phone numbers. He let me know he was on the way to work, and I told him we were just wedding shopping. I was 22 at the time and very naive as to what to do in case of an accident. He told me that we both seemed pretty busy and that we should just handle it ourselves since we were both busy. We didn't call the police, my mistake, and he told me to get the damage looked at to see what it would cost. I took the car in 2 days later and they quoted me $1,100 for the bumper to be replaced. I texted him and he told me he will be getting scholarships in 2 months when he goes back to school, and he will be able to pay me in cash then. I again naively told him that's fine. A week later I followed up with him about another estimate I got, which was lower than the original, $900, but I got no response. I texted him again and again for the next few days and nothing. At this point I realized he had bailed. I came up with a plan to find him. All I had was his name and now useless phone number, and a general area of where he worked. I searched for him on Facebook and he was pretty sure I found him. I searched under his family members and saw what looked to be like his son. My soon-to-be sister-in-law was 16 and looked about the same age as his son. I decided to go full-on sleuth and go undercover. I used her Facebook and changed her last name to match theirs. I then messaged the son and told him that I thought we might be cousins. I asked him some questions about his dad, like name and his job, and told him that my mom said I have an uncle down there by that name and worked at this guitar shop. He answered yes, that was his dad's name, and told me the name of the place where his dad worked. I was so relieved I was making progress. The next day I drove back up near the accident and found where the man worked. I found his car and took pictures of his license plate. I then took all the information I had and went to the courthouse. I filled out paperwork and handed it to the clerk. The clerk told me they could either mail the form to his work address, or if I paid $25, I could have an officer hand-deliver it. Of course, I paid the $25 just to embarrass him at his workplace. A few weeks later, we were summoned to the court to see if we could work things out before going to an actual hearing. He showed up and we sat down with a mediator. She explained everything to all of us. I told him I didn't want to do this, but he stopped responding. He replied that his phone was stolen, so he had to get a new one. In my mind, a phone being stolen doesn't equal changing your phone number. I knew he was lying. The moderator asked him to step outside. She talked to us and told us not to trust him because his story didn't really make sense. The mediator invited him back inside and we read over the terms I listed in the court documents. He was to pay $2,400. I charged him the original replacement cost, gas from driving back and forth, my time for doing all this work and extra just for being a jerk. He said he would pay, but he didn't. So with that, I went to his job and took pictures of his car. I replied I didn't like that he hit my car. A few months later, he paid the full amount in cash and had to pay for our court costs as well. I sold the damaged car and took the cash he gave me to buy another car fully in cash. All in all, I benefited from it. But next time I'll just call the cops and save myself the headache. Next story. A drunk woman calls the cops on me after assaulting me. This happened a few years ago. I was a manager/bouncer at a very busy local bar, and it was my job to cut people off and/or bounce them if needed. I was in the process of cutting a woman off and she became very belligerent. Since this was also a karaoke bar, she just so happened to be called to the stage while I was in the middle of cutting her off. She marches past me and stumbles onto the stage. I have the karaoke host cut her music off and continue on to the next singer. I go to the stage and escort the lady off. To be clear, I did not touch her at this moment. I'm a broad 5'9" woman, my boots at 1.5 inches, so this very short woman complied rather easily until she continued to argue with me after the fact. She didn't want to leave and ended up punching me in the face. I put my arms around her, picked her up, and headed towards the front door, at which time she grabbed the protective glass cover on the house stand and shattered it all over the ground. Once she was outside, she was yelling and screaming that I had assaulted her and threatened to call the police to have me arrested. I quickly grabbed the business card for her and said our address is on the card, just so you make sure you can call the cops to the right place. They arrived and asked me who they needed the address, and they arrested her. I am certain they just put her in the drunk tank for the night. Next story. Defraud me? It'll cost you $45K. So 3 years ago, my husband and I set out to buy a house. We started in a rent-to-own situation because the house we wanted was up for that. The girl wanted to rent for a year then sell. Don't know why she did, but it worked for us, as the rent was really low for the area and it such allowed us to save up for the down payment. My brother-in-law was ready to co-sign on a loan, and this was a done deal for everyone. We signed a contract and we're good to go, right? No. This is pro-revenge here. Not everything works perfectly. So about 6 months into the contract, she wants a down payment. This is not right. You give the down payment to the bank, don't you? We decline. Then she needs money to help pay for her mom's shoulder surgery. She will take it off the total payment. We're shaky because of the first request and decline. We decided we're going to wait the 12 months because we're almost to a point financially where we don't need brother-in-law. And now she needs money because her dad has a stroke. We start taking a look at other houses because we can feel this is going downhill. Find 1-2 houses down. Way prettier and 400 square feet more, 10K less but 10 years older. I love it. It has 3 nooks. One in the kitchen dining area, one in the dining room, and one in the living room. We approached the owners but haven't made an offer yet. She claims we're not going to buy the house, so she's going to show it to other people. Okay. Technically she owns the house. Showing it is her right. She shows the house to one person who makes an offer and tries to evict us a month early as a result. We made an offer on the other house and it's accepted. We sent her a letter from our lawyer for breach of contract, and she flips and asks us to work it out. We refuse and she sues us for failing to buy the house per the contract. We find out later the person she showed the house to and who made an offer is her Facebook friend. We could win easily, seeing as she defrauded us. Her parents owned the house and she did not have a legal right or power of attorney to sign the contract. Her name was not on anything other than our rent-to-own contact, so her mom had the power to put us at any time, and she did when they found out we were not going to buy it. After a rushed closing, we got out 2 days before the end of our eviction. Then the daughter has a gal to sue us for breaching of contract, and also tried to sue us for damage we documented prior to moving in. They sell the house for $15,000 less than the asking price, so we dragged that jerk out. We demanded non-binding mediation. She didn't show up and got a judgment for $35,000. Objected and demanded a jury trial. At this point, her lawyer fees were upwards of $20,000, but he was a lawyer they had for mom's business, not a real estate lawyer. We get to 3 days before the trial. Their lawyer's ready to do battle, and our lawyer goes into pre-trial hearing and presents the documentation that she never had the legal right to sign the documentation at all, and the judge dismisses the case for standing. Life pro tip: get a lawyer who specializes in what you are trying to do, or at least on who is willing to do the research when discovery includes the request for power of attorney over real property. Okay, so per the comments, she did not own the house, her parents did. As such, she had no legal right to make a deal for sale unless she had power of attorney. She did not. After she sued us, we demanded mediation. We requested it to be non-binding, as was allowed in the contract, because it gave both parties the ability to say no. This sucks. We want a jury trial. We didn't bother to show up for the medication because we already had her for defrauding us. The mediation granted her for request because we didn't show up. We objected to the settlement and demanded the jury trial. As a result, her lawyers prepped for 2 months, costing her a ton more in the lawyer's fees. 3 days before trial, our lawyer presented evidence to the judge that she has no legal right to act as an agent to sell the property. 3 days before the trial, our lawyer presented evidence to the judge that she has no legal right to act as an agent to sell the property if she signed any agreement with us, and the whole case was tossed and she was on the hook for all her lawyer's fees and took a $15,000 hit on the listing price of the house. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.